You've spent an entire career fighting fires and rescuing the injured, sick, and dying. But that's all over now. What do you do when the sirens stop, you've hung up your gear, and you walk out of the firehouse for the last time? What do you do with your life when the smoke clears?
Welcome back to the When the Smoke Clears podcast. I'm Russell Miles. I'm here with Tony Ben Cosme. Thank you so very much for joining us as we talk with someone else who has done a full career in the fire service and is kind of living life on the other side. This is a different episode than what we've had in the past. We have another individual who is still actively involved in the fire service, very much actively involved in the fire service, as you will soon see. And we are very glad to have him on. And I'm going to kick it over to Tony, and Tony's going to tell us a little bit more about our guest and a little bit of promotion.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Russ. I want to thank everybody for listening and appreciate your support through all these podcasts we're trying to put together for you. And next guest, very distinguished. He's had several careers, really, if you think about it. So he's our current fire chief in Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Services. He was a deputy chief in Prince George's County, many years there, 20 years to be exact, 21 years to be exact. Left there, became a chief in Alexandria Fire Department, eventually rising to the rank of fire chief. Left that post, went back to PG County as an assistant or deputy chief there. And then got offered a job here as the fire chief. So that's a very full career to any standard. And without further ado, I'm going to let my man tell his own story the way he sees it. Chief Smedley, thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I know we had to fight through a little bit of technical difficulties there, but we got it working, and we're so very glad that you are here spending some time talking with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So initially, we like to hear the origin story of our guests, so to speak. So tell us a little bit about where you were born, where you were raised, and what life was like coming up for you.
Okay, thank you. So I seem to spend my time working my way around the Beltway. I actually was born in Washington, D.C. I grew up in Washington, D.C. and in the Northeast area, Minnesota Avenue, Benning Road. I went to D.C. public schools up until junior high. I graduated from Jefferson Junior High in Southwest, and then I was raised primarily by my mom. I have two older sisters. My dad was in my life, but he didn't live with us. My mom and dad had separated, so my mom was the main provider, disciplinarian, and she was wise beyond her years. So she worked at night, and she didn't want this young, energetic young man to get in trouble. So she moved me with my uncle in Suitland, Maryland, where that's when I started to go to Prince George's County public schools, and I graduated from Largo High School. My life growing up was, to my awareness, was no different than anyone else's. We grew up in the inner city. That's all I knew. We lived in wasn't public housing, but it was very meager means. I didn't miss a meal. I went on school trips. I had friends,
Right.
those kind of things, regular things. So, that's kind of my story as it relates to growing up in Washington, D.C. And then, we never had an opportunity to engage with the fire department except for when they came to the school for career day, or in the summertime, they would put up the hydrants and we would play in the water. But other than that, I had no interaction with the fire department. If I got sick or hurt, My mom took me to get taken care of at the doctor's office, and she didn't use the fire department, police department for anything. So that was actually my experience with the fire department. I really got my exposure to the fire service. My older sister, she's 6 years older than me. She got hired in Prince George's County Fire Department in 1989. And I'm looking at my big sister and like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. She would come home from the academy and talk about all the great things she would do. And then she got in, graduated from the academy and started getting out in operations and running all these cool calls. And it just got me inspired. I saw my sister do some great things that I had no knowledge that existed, because there was no volunteer system in Washington, D.C. So that exposure didn't exist for me. So that's kind of how I got involved in the fire service, but from my big sister.
Oh man, that's
Okay.
so she kind of motivated you, and you saw a lead by example kind of deal.
Oh yeah, I mean, you figure you grow up in the same house together, and that's your sibling. You do a lot together. You help each other. You argue, but then you grow up, and she's out there doing some things that you just like, wow, that's my sister. That was really exciting to me, and I just got that bug, and I applied in Prince George's County twice. I made it through the process both times. I just didn't get hired in 93. I got hired in 95, my second attempt. And that's how my career started.
Okay. So get hired in 95 and start right into recruit school. So tell us a little bit about that. Like what was recruit school like for you?
Because my sister had that experience, she shared that experience with me. I actually was the last person called for recruit class 33. I'm sorry, recruit class 27. There were 33 people in my recruit class. Pretty diverse class, from gender to races. And that class was the last class that got hired as a firefighter only class. 2 weeks later, there was a paramedic only class that got hired. After that, everybody had to do both. So I was in the last class in Prince George's County, CRS. We called it Career Recruit School 27. That was the firefighter class. And so learning the ups and downs and some of the information that my sister provided me on what to expect, I at least went in with a little intel of how to make sure that I can do everything I can to be successful. The irony in that time, I don't know if you all remember, but the big thing in the country at that time was the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yes.
And we couldn't watch TV in recruit school except for we watched the VHS tapes for our EMS training and different things like that.
VHS tapes.
Yeah, VHS tape. Actually, they were 3/4-inch tapes too, the dinosaur tapes before VHS, right? But this one time, the instructors allowed us to watch the verdict of the O.J. Simpson trial, and I remember that like it was yesterday.
Wow.
And I say that because I told you that it was a very diverse class from gender and race. Once the verdict came out, the instructor slapped the knob on the TV, cut the TV off, unplugged it, rolled it out, and you can feel the divide in the room.
Wow.
And that was just kind of an aha moment for me. Like, okay, this is something I need to pay attention to and recognize in this department. We grew together just like every academy class does, and we still have bonds to this day with a lot of those my recruit classmates. We graduated from the academy, went on our way, and went to our different stations, different battalions throughout the county. I actually was assigned, my first station was Hyattsville. And Hyattsville was great for me because I never had any volunteer experience, but it was a volunteer station with career staff as well. And it was right on the border of Montgomery County. And we didn't call them TDAs, we called them tiller trucks. So we had a tiller truck, we had a wagon pumper, a heavy rescue, and an ambulance. So I ran quite a bit of calls on that border with Montgomery County in my early years as a rookie throughout the Prince George's County Fire Department.
Were you on day work? Is that a day work, or you on shift work at the time when you started there?
When I started there, I was on day work. The way Prince George's County staff at that time, you had at Hyattsville, you had 4-person staffing. One was a technician, which is equivalent to the master here. So we had a technician on day work, we had an officer on every shift, and 2 firefighters on every shift. So you had a 4-person minimum staffing during the day from Monday through Friday, and then 3 people at night, and then that was supplemented through the volunteers. So I was initially on day work, and then you were assigned a officer to be the officer to handle all of your probationary items. But because we had 4-person staffing, I probably was detailed out of that station 4 to 5 times a week, which I didn't like initially, but that got me exposure across the entire county. So I got to really squared away officers and otherwise. So that gave me something to compare with
Right.
what was going on with me and what was going on across the county, and that got me to really advocate more for myself, because you didn't know what you didn't know at first. I'm thinking this is how it works. I didn't know any better, but I saw some things in my journey where people in my class were progressing really quickly, and I was not. So I started to advocate for myself and really connect myself with people that I saw that was doing great things, and try to emulate that so I can improve myself.
Okay. I'm aware that you're currently still a paramedic in the state of Maryland, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you're a firefighter. You're still going through the process of learning your craft. What year was it you said, okay, I want to be a paramedic, or was this something you had to do to get promoted? How does that work?
So that's very interesting. I was a rookie for 4 years. So my class got hired in 95.
Wow.
We didn't hire again until 1999. And in 1999, they created what's called emergency response technicians. So that was the coming together that you had to be a firefighter and paramedic. And it was a little rocky, because that class was a class of about 100 people, which was the largest that I knew of at that time.
Mhm.
And then that class got terminated because they were going back and forth with some things that with having to do both, and they got their job back, but they ended up changing it that you didn't have to become a paramedic, but if you wanted to promote, you had to be a paramedic if you got hired from 99 onward. So for me, for whatever reason in my life, personal and professional, like I told you, I have 2 sisters, 2 older sisters.
Yeah.
I've always had the opportunity through others to see into the future. And whether I'm at home and see what, I'm not going to do that, because I'm going to get in trouble if I do that my sister did and got in trouble with. I carried that, I carried that over into my career. And so in 99, I had 4 years on the job, and I saw the direction that the organization was going. So I didn't have any kids. I wasn't married. I said, you know what? I have more in front of me than I do behind me. And if this is where the department is going, I need to get off my butt and get my paramedic certification. So I went to get my paramedic certification for that. Because I got hired in 95, I did not have to have that to promote, but I went on and achieved that certification.
Okay. That's cool. So when you got hired, did you have any schooling already, or did you just, it was kind of like out of high school, or how did you make that? How did that transition go?
Yeah, and so I mentioned that I applied twice. 92 I applied, and they hired a class in 93. In 94 I applied, and they hired a class in 95. In 93 I had my bachelor's degree in communications from the University of District of Columbia. In 94 I had my bachelor's, and I was in the military. So and back then you had preference points. So I got points for my degree. I got points for military, and at that time I was a county resident. You got points for that. So I had a good amount of those preference points that existed, that I'm certain was beneficial for me getting hired.
Did you go active duty, or was it a reserve component and you just did that to pay for your education? How did that work?
Yeah, so it was reserved. So
Okay.
when I went to the recruiter, at that time I had a stepbrother. We went together. We went to the recruiter. 2 weeks later, we were headed out to basic training. I went to Fort Jackson. He went to Fort Leavenworth. We went straight into basic and then AIT. Then I came back, and then I went to my reserve unit at Fort Meade, attached to a military intelligence battalion. And I joined the military to help further my education.
Okay.
Nice. Very nice.
Hmm.
All right. So you decide to get your paramedic certification, get checked off as a medic. And so how did that change your career, or what was your career like going forward now that you're a medic?
It took me a while to obtain my medic. I didn't get it right away. I think, if I can remember, I took three classes, three medic classes. I was young, so I was not always as focused as I should be. I was single, and I was, having 20-something-year-old fun out there, safe fun. But I eventually finished class. At my first class was a class in the department, and it was on Fridays. It was throughout the week. It was literally the instructor. And I tell you about that the TV on that rolling cart. He would have a bunch of tapes. Friday at 6 o'clock, he put a tape in. He'd come back at 9:30. It was like, okay, I'm like, I can't do this. This is not motivating me at all. So I dropped that class, and then I went through a class at the Washington Hospital Center, and I finished that class. I finished my clinicals, but I let my eligibility expire. So then I had to take the class all over again.
Wow.
Yeah, man. I learned from my mistakes. Let me say that.
Right.
I finished the course at Prince George's Community College, and then I ultimately got my my national registry, and I took the state. I finished the state, and then I had to go through the county process. Well, at that time, I was a captain. And I literally was told by the fire chief at that time, "You're a captain. You're not going to be placed on the medic unit. We need you to run a station, but we're going to give you 6 months. And in 6 months, I don't care where you are. 6 months is up. You're going back to run the station." So I had the expedited internship.
Wow.
My internship was at Station 25, which is Clinton. A volunteer fire department. And I can tell you, I saw a little bit of everything in that 6 months. I think we might have not used dobutamine and dopamine. I think that's the only drugs I didn't use, but I went through everything else.
The entire protocol.
I mean, it was my preceptor was like, "Man, I can't wait till you leave. We are running stuff that doesn't make sense." I actually was the paramedic. I don't know if you all remember the case, Yvette Cade, where her husband set her on fire at the T-Mobile off of close to Clinton, off Surratt's Road, I believe.
Wow.
I was the paramedic that treated her, and he literally went into her job, had a bottle, like a Sprite bottle, filled it up with
I think I heard of that.
gasoline,
Yeah.
and just poured it on her head and lit her on fire. Literally lit her on fire. So it was things like that we ran. It's like, man, my preceptor said, "Man, we're gonna get you out of here and don't ever come back." So, so then, really, the paramedic role, it made me more capable of serving the community. I wish I would have gotten it and paid attention sooner, because I would have done even better on promotional exams. You really take leadership roles as a paramedic, report writing, talking on the radio, really the incident commander on taking care of a patient. So you really get into a rhythm in that space, and you're constantly doing continuing ed that's mandatory. So I wish I'd have taken advantage of the paramedic program much earlier and taken it more seriously initially. So it really helped me just hone in on my skills and be a better provider, and being able to communicate better to not only my patients in the community, but my shift as well. So I attribute that to the paramedic experience.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's It's interesting. So let's rewind the tape a little bit. You said you finally finished your paramedic stuff, or you was a captain. So you're a firefighter. You're in between going to these medic classes and stuff like that. You're still trying to push the envelope. What make you want to promote? I mean, what makes you, I mean, because that transition, we know that transition is hard from being a firefighter,
Yeah,
backstep type dude,
yeah,
going to fires, and you're going to fires in PG and a little bit in
yeah,
Montgomery County. So
yeah.
you get addicted to that. You're like, I'm good. I'm settled, set and settled right here. I'm not going here. What made you say I want to drive? I want
Yeah.
to become an officer. I want to lead. How does that work?
A couple things. And this is no particular order. So I mentioned earlier that I was assigned to Hyattsville, and then they assign you an officer. But because of how the station was staffed, again, I was literally detailed 4 to 5 times a week. So if they have 4 shifts in Prince George's County, and my lieutenant was assigned to get me through my probationary period, you can imagine how often I saw him. I
Right.
didn't see him often. So when I would go to another officer, I'd say, "Hey, can we do some driver's training? Okay, can we go over this?" And it was met with explicit and implicit resistance. So I was not a shy guy. I was, like I said, I grew up in Washington D.C., Minnesota Avenue, Benning Road area, so I knew how to defend myself.
Mhm.
And I had support from my sister who knew the system better than me, and she helped me along with things. So I would defend myself, and that was sometimes non-traditional at that time for a probationary firefighter to do to an officer. So things like um, I would, we had station tests, we had, area familiarization, we had all the stuff, that you would normally have, and if I wasn't the top, I was in the top two of the station with those testing. So it's not like I was not in a space where I knew what was presented to me, but I was still getting that resistance. So I would have to write in the logbook when we run ambulance calls, right? So they would say, "Rookie, you do all the paperwork, write in the logbook, and do all the reporting." Fine, I did it. I had to learn it, had no problem. But when I came to officer such and such and said, "Hey, can we go do driver's training?" "Oh, lieutenant on D shift is your officer. Talk to him." I come back to another officer, said, "Okay, I finished all this stuff. We don't have anything on the calendar. Can we go do some driver's training?" "We were busy today." So I kept getting that same kind of resistance. So I would write in the logbook, "Requested training denied."
There you go.
Wow.
Officially
So
documented.
so
Yeah.
I
On
found my
record.
yeah, I
Yeah.
found myself quite often across from somebody in official capacity having to defend myself. And so I stayed in the general orders and the policies and procedures so I can do that. And I had people that would come to me, senior firefighters, uh, male, female, black, white, Hispanic, and say, "Smedley, you're a bright young man. You got potential here. I can see it. The way you approach things is not going to fare well with you with how this organization is." And I was a little taken aback by that because I hope they would help advocate for me. So I sat down and I worked overtime one day. This is the other part,
Mhm.
at a different station. And I'm still new. I've never worked in that station before. I don't really know the people there. They disappeared. So I'm like, I look out in the bay. None of the apparatus is gone. Okay, they didn't leave me. I worked my way around the station. They had a basement. I went downstairs, and the crew was had a whiteboard, and they were going through building construction and scenarios. And there was this young man there, which I thought he was a young man, but he's actually 8 years my elder. He just looked much younger than me. They were doing preparation for the lieutenant's exam. And so I said, "Hey, do you mind if I sit down in here and watch you guys?" And it was like, "Come on in." And I saw the work that he was doing. And at the time, remember, I thought he was younger than me. And I'm like, I can do that. So that got me to start thinking about, man, your journey, my experience, I'm seeing what other people in my class are receiving and what I'm not receiving, and I'm constantly having to defend myself. And then the narrative is trying to change on who I am, but I'm just trying to defend myself and get what is given to everybody else. And then I'm seeing another person that I think is younger than me taking the deliberate actions to try to prepare themselves and elevate. I said, I can do that too. So those things help me say, you know what? If you want to make a difference and do better for not only yourself and others, you need to take that step and elevate. And that's what got me to want to elevate in my career.
Oh
Nice.
man. So in your probationary packet, you said you're detailed. So you're not detailed while you're a rookie and still doing all the stuff in your packet, or is it you get to it when you get to it?
I was detailed 4 to 5 times a week coming out the gate from the recruit school.
Oh
So I
wow.
still had to. The great part of it is I had everything I needed. We had to do ambulance time, engine time, and special service time. So Hyattsville was prime for that. And then I would, I'm not just expecting to get everything done where it's convenient. I would come, in the morning, on the weekends, stay late after work, and I would work with the people to help to get me into a better space and to progress through my probationary period. Also, we still kept in contact with our peers in the academy, and we still had our study groups. So we were helping each other in that way as well. And then don't forget, my sister, it was still in the department. So anything that I had questions about, I would definitely reach out to her to get guidance.
Oh wow. That's good.
Gotcha. So you still had plenty of support and resources, even though you were on the road most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, you had some overwhelmingly, there were some great officers in Prince George's County. So if I'm detailed, whatever they're doing, I'm learning. And I'll go from a suburban environment to an urban environment to a rural environment, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
on a regular basis. So I got to see different apparatus because we didn't have standardized apparatus. So I got to see different makes, models, drafting operations, high-rise operations, garden style apartment operations. So I got a very good variety of different things. And then based on where you're assigned or detailed, you're running mutual aid with other jurisdictions. So Howard County, Anne Arundel County, again Montgomery County. So we're right on the DC border in a lot of places. So you got good exposure in that process. So that what I felt at that time that I didn't appreciate actually helped me quite a bit through my journey. I don't think it was done in that manner, but I took advantage of that opportunity.
Gotcha. Now, is
Man.
that typical for rookies to get detailed out pretty consistently, or was that mostly just your experience?
I don't really have definitive evidence to answer that question adequately, but what I can tell you, one of the reasons that I was detailed quite a bit is because um, the the um, you're not going to detail the technician, right?
Right.
Right.
You're not going to detail the officer,
No.
right? So you have two firefighters. So if the firefighter gets detailed, I got to get held over until they come back to their shift, which causes overtime. So some of that had to do with cost effectiveness and the
Okay.
overtime budget.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. A lot of it was, yeah. Okay.
Gotcha.
Situation.
Okay. Gotcha. So when you are like you do your rookie time and you get done everything you need to get done. So did you stay assigned to Hyattsville after you finished your rookie time, or did you get moved to another station?
Oh man. So I was assigned to Hyattsville 2 times in my career. I was assigned to Mount Rainier. I was assigned to College Park twice in my career. I was assigned to Riverdale. I was assigned to Landover Hills. I was assigned to Capitol Heights, Boulevard Heights, Clinton, and Allentown. Those were my station assignments. Most of it was the first, fourth, and third battalion. I did work all over the county, but that was kind of the hub, 1st, 3rd, and 4th Battalion that I was assigned to. So you moved around every couple of years, and I got promoted to my first promotion was in 2001 as a lieutenant. I was on both the technician and the lieutenant's list at the same time. Um, I, I scored higher. I was number 2 on the lieutenant's test and number 10 on the technician's test. So I missed a 10% promotion. I acted as a technician. I acted as a technician for probably a year and some change, but I was never officially promoted as a technician. I got promoted to lieutenant, and I lost 10% for about 9 years until we had to catch up clause in the contract.
Okay, yeah.
So that, I didn't pass the first time. So I wanted that to be clear. I did better than I did from the paramedic process. but I took the technician and lieutenant test the first time, and I didn't pass either one of those the first time. And then the second time I really buckled down. I got into several study groups. I hired people to help me. And I still do that to this day, where I'll hire people to help and provide some insight to help me along in processes to really evaluate what I'm doing well and what other areas I need to improve on. I'm not the best test taker, so I have to. My wife tells me when I'm going through a process that I'm like a mad scientist, because I really focus on things, and I have to, because like I said, I don't take tests well. So I make sure I put in the work where I know I need the most help to get me prepared.
Okay, so where were you a lieutenant? Were you lieutenant at one spot, or did you get detailed out for that too?
I was a lieutenant in Capitol Heights.
Okay.
So that was the 1st Battalion. I was a lieutenant at Capitol Heights, and then I was a lieutenant at Boulevard Heights, which is the 3rd Battalion, which they're really close. And remember, we staff fire stations. So when I started out before I got promoted, and I was a shift person, I had it from I was a single shift person to I had a partner as a shift person to I had a crew as a shift person. So I've had the ability to, which is crazy as you think of it to this day, where Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, you might have 4 person assigned to a station. After 3 o'clock, it's just me. And I can have a truck, an ambulance, and an engine there. And if volunteers are there, they'll help staff it. If not, I go out driver only. So you're driving, you're talking on the radio, you're looking at your map books, you're laying out, you're giving a size up. It is crazy to think that existed as I grew through the organization during those times. So I was at a lieutenant at 2 stations. Then I went as an acting captain at they brought me back to Boulevard Heights as an acting captain, and then I eventually got promoted to captain. And I stayed at Boulevard Heights for a while as a captain.
So what made you want to become a captain? It's easy to ask, but I mean, what some people stay at lieutenant, some people don't. Yeah. What made you want to take that next move?
I just started to get that desire to continue to elevate. For me, since I've pretty much been through all of the ranks. Again, I even acted as a technician. I never was a promoted technician, but I acted as a technician. In my opinion, there are a couple of positions that change your perspective of what you need to be thinking about in the fire service. So coming from a firefighter, going to a frontline officer as a lieutenant, that's one of them. The next one, I believe, lieutenant to captain, You start to the major difference that I saw from going from lieutenant to a captain, where I grew up, is now you're managing other officers instead of
Mhm. Yes.
firefighters and technicians. So it wasn't a big shift from lieutenant to captain. Um, Going to battalion chief is another one. You leave going from a, a crew to by yourself, and it's lonely, and you it can be lonely, and now you're going from a lot of these people are your friends that you worked alongside with. You saw their flaws, they saw your flaws, and now you're managing these officers, and you're getting these guidance that you might not always agree with, that you got to make sure that you're carrying the message, that you're holding people accountable, at the volunteer space, as well as at the officer space, and you have multiple stations you're dealing with, and then you have the type A squared, your specialty people, your hazmat, your tech rescue, all those water rescue, all those people are, those type A squared people, and trying to get them to understand. And they're saying, oh, we got, this is Smedley, where some of them came in with me or used to supervise me.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah,
so
I
that
see that.
that was a big shift. And then the next one for me is um, going from a battalion to kind of a bureau, um, a little bit, but you really, the battalion chief to assistant chief wasn't a significant challenge for me. Going to deputy chief wasn't a significant challenge. Going to a fire chief was that next kind of catalyst. So the lieutenant, battalion chief, and fire chief for me were those three major kind of transitions in a career. So that's from my standpoint, that's the areas that really challenged me the most when I got into those positions.
Yeah, gotcha. I wanted to take a step back and talk a little bit about the whole volunteer piece, because as a lot of people know, Prince George's County is very similar to Montgomery County in that they're both combination departments. There's
Mhm.
career firefighters, there's volunteer firefighters, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Prince George's seems to rely a lot more on their volunteer firefighters to make up their minimum staffing. So what was that like? What was some of your experiences like dealing with volunteers in PG?
Um, so starting out at Hyattsville, Chief Donald Moultrip, I think his brother worked here.
Yeah. Yes.
They
Captain
call him,
Motion.
they call him Doc Moultrip. Matter of
Mhm.
fact, he just passed. His funeral is coming up next month. He was the first volunteer chief I was really ever exposed to. And then coming into Hyattsville, in that 4th Battalion space, when you think of, and I still think this exists now, when you think of a higher education institution that is kind of the top 3 for fire service, University of Maryland is always there, if not the top, if
Right.
not number 1.
Right.
So for volunteering, University of Maryland was a great magnet for those stations around the university.
Okay.
I bring that to light because Hyattsville had a lot of students that were at the University of Maryland that are volunteering at Hyattsville. So they had a purpose. Um, some of them weren't, but they still had a purpose. And Doc Moultrip was that guy that I remember, that he was a level-headed person. He treated everyone fairly. There might have been a Prince George's patch and a Hyattsville patch, but it didn't make a difference. We all ate together. At a certain point, everybody stopped what they're doing. We did housework together. We did paperwork. We trained together. Back then they had Vegas nights, so they would make a
Yeah,
lot of money.
they would.
So when they have their events and banquets, they would invite all the shift people there. We would go. It was one big family. So that was my exposure to the volunteer system. I didn't know any different. until I started going around to other places in the county, and I saw that sometimes, not always, because they have really great people in the volunteer system there, but sometimes there were some knuckleheads, just like there were some knuckleheads on the career side, on the paid
Mhm.
side. But yes, I mentioned I started out with you staff stations with 4 people from 7 to 3, and sometimes they had shift work, and sometimes they didn't, and the volunteers took it over after hours. They have since have evolved where now they're at a better place where they're staffing the ambulance and they're moving toward 4-person staffing for everything else, but they're still doing cross staff. So if Hyattsville is another example where if you have a truck there, you have an engine, you have a squad, and you have an ambulance, they would still only have 6 people assigned there, 2 dedicated for the transport unit and 4 for everything else. So whatever is dispatch is due, those 4 people will get on that apparatus. I don't know if that's exactly happening there, but that's the model that they're used. So for me, and they still are heavily relying on volunteer system. And I was just there from January to May of 2024. But just like in fire service in general, whether you're paid or volunteering, we all know that it's not as many people interested in this field as it was when we first started. When I
Right.
got hired when I started in 95, it was 3,000 people that applied for 33 positions.
Mhm.
Our last process here in Montgomery County, we're doing great, but it was just less than 1,500 people that applied for our service. So the volunteer system works well. There are some challenges there on um, I think in any volunteer system where the volunteers came first. Volunteers and they come first, and they're still the majority of the fire service in our country of all the volunteer system. And
Right.
so when you look at a Prince George's or Montgomery County, uh, volunteers came first, and the county looked a certain way. Now you have some of these volunteer corporations that are 100 years old. We know they've changed for since that time frame. So things have shifted.
Mhm.
So what are we doing to shift with those changes is the question that we're trying to solve right now. I'm not going to get into any of the
No, no,
specifics
no.
that we're
Yeah.
doing here, but
Right.
that's really what we're trying to solve here and everywhere where with the standards are harder. So the certifications that you have to receive,
Right.
it takes more time.
Yeah.
People are working. People have
Yes.
families. It's really hard to keep up with everything that you have to keep up with. Do your normal life and take on the responsibilities of volunteering. So that's still a challenge in Prince George's County, but I wouldn't say that's just a challenge in Prince George's. That's a challenge in the volunteer system, period.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's wow. It's a hell of a perspective. I didn't necessarily know all that about PG County. Um, so let's get back to you. You are a captain now. You run the station, and you decide to take the battalion chief test,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you promote. And we all know. I did it once. I was part of a process. Took the test. Did some stuff involved in that, and I know people that have promoted. And it's you leave the fire, basically leave the fire service that you know, for a
Yep.
whole new fire service,
Yeah.
and it's a
Yep.
different job completely. And
Yeah.
it's that transition is probably like you said, as hard as when you first become lieutenant in some situations where you're just doing the learning curve is similar to that. So you do the battalion chief for a little bit. What makes you want to? You're doing that, and how long did you do that for? And what makes you decide? Okay, I want to go to the next thing.
I was a battalion chief for 3 years. The biggest thing about that battalion chief role, and really every promotion that you do, the biggest thing is you're less hands-on and tactical every position you move up.
Right.
So as the probationary firefighter, you're doing everything. They want you to get routines. They want you to get a bunch of rhythms in so you can be proficient at that. Then you go to a technician or master. There are other things that you're starting to do, and you look at that, but you're not as as hands-on with patient care sometimes. I know it's a little different here with how masters are master paramedics. Then you become a lieutenant. So if I'm doing the firefighter's work or the master's work or the lieutenant's work or the captain's work, then I'm not doing my job. And I can tell you, being in spaces where I had great leadership or the otherwise, I appreciated the great leadership, and I also learned from the otherwise as well of what not to do.
Right, what not to do, yeah.
Because I can't do better at my job and learn my job if you're doing my job. So you have to have trust and give it away. You have to have the trust and give it away. So that was one of the biggest things of you're really tactical as a battalion chief, but you're talking tactical, right? You're not doing tactical, and you got to make sure that you don't get up on that roof and see what's going on. You make sure you make sure. But I'm telling you, I've seen battalion chiefs do that. And I'm not going to say where, but I've seen battalion chiefs do that, and I don't think that's a good thing to do, because you got to give trust and power and support your people to do their job and let them grow. They're going to make mistakes, and just help them through those mistakes, but you got to let them grow. So really is, more and more getting out of the weeds is the biggest challenge that I see, that I had to do, and others when they start to elevate, whether that's the battalion chief or not. So I had some interesting roles where I got out of the fire service while I was in the fire service as well. That got me exposure to more than I knew existed. So one day I got a call from the fire chief's office, and it was the executive officer to the fire chief. And I'm thinking, okay, what did I do? Let me figure out what I did, because I must have did something to get a call. So I called him. He said, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, you need me to come to you? He said, I want to do it after hours. I'm like, oh Lord, I don't know what the heck is going on now. So I met the executive officer to the fire chief in a church parking lot one day. And he said, there's a guy that's about to get promoted, and we want you to go to that spot, to work in that spot. I'm like, okay, what station? And he said, it's not at the station, it's in the county executive's office.
Wow.
I said, what I do? Like, why me? The person that was getting promoted was that gentleman I saw that I thought was younger than me in the basement of a station that was preparing for the lieutenant's exam. And so I asked the executive officer, I said, so I've only worked around him. I've never have been assigned with him. So what was it about me that he thinks I can do whatever he does in that place? He said he admires you. He said he saw you early on be inquisitive about everything. Said you always wanted to help. You always wanted to roll your sleeve up. You always was in a class. He saw me going through paramedic class. He knew I was struggling through it, but he saw me go through paramedic class. He saw me promoting. He saw me engaging on the fire scene and with the community. And he said, that guy has what it takes to be successful in this organization and to do this role. And so I had no idea what that job entailed. Nor did I want to get out of the fire station. I wanted to run calls. I wanted to run fires. I wanted to do all the stuff that we all like to do. And the executive officer said, Smedley, this is the fourth time you've had an opportunity to take an administrative role. And for whatever reason, you always found the reason not to. He said, everybody goes through what you're going through now as it relates to going through academy, taking promotional exam, running fires, running EMS calls. Said, what else do you have to offer? That's not the only thing that happens in the fire service. If you want to learn about the fire department and fire service, you need to consider taking a role like this so you can learn what happens behind the scenes. And so went home to my wife, said, "What do you think?" She said, "Why not?" At that time I was on day work as a captain, and so I went on and took on that role, and that role got me to understand how government works. I was the special assistant to the deputy chief administrative officer for public safety. So
Okay.
that person was in charge of the police chief, fire chief, homeland security director, the 911 director. They liaison with the sheriff's office. They liaison with the state's attorneys. They liaison with the judges. And every aspect of county government. So for me, I got exposed to see how the things work behind the scenes. And that just opened up my eyes. And then he pushed me. He said, "I know you have your bachelor's degree. When you're going to get your master's?"
Wow.
And I said, I'm good, man. I don't. I looked at the requirements to be the fire chief. I said, I got everything I need to be the fire chief. He said, "Smedley, I want you to apply for a master's program." And so I went to apply for the organizational leadership program through Johns Hopkins, and I got accepted in 2007, and I finished 2009 with my master's in organizational management. So that role got me exposed to so many different things outside of the fire service. I got to see how police chiefs work, how corrections directors work. I got to see the good stuff they did. I got to see how they did investigations. I got to see how they handled personnel issues, how they did budgets, how all those things that it would have been challenging for me to grasp all those things. And even if I did, it would have just been from a fire service perspective. So
Right.
that really got my eyes open to what else was out there that existed. And that's why, Russ, you saw us go to United Therapeutics the other day, because we do a lot of talking with ourselves, and we have a lot of brilliant people, but there are other industries out there that's already figured it out, and we need to expose ourselves to them so we can learn from them as well.
Right. Exactly.
100%, 100%. And then that's amazing, such a full circle moment that firefighter that noticed you coming downstairs to see
Right.
them prepare for the test.
One
You-
interaction, right? Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
one interaction. What is it? You never get a second chance at a first impression, or whatever it is they say. You know. Yeah.
People are watching, man. They're watching us, right? And they're watching the good stuff we do. They're watching the stuff that we're not doing well, but they're watching you. So to put your best foot forward. That's all I say. I've made a whole lot of mistakes in my career, but I learn from them, and I refine what I know that I need to work on, and I continue to do my best to move forward and to improve myself in that way.
Okay, so let's be honest. To everyone talks. Yeah, I'm gonna be the fire chief, but it takes a lot of different things to go right for you to be a fire chief at a fire department. And first is belief. You had people promoting you and helping you, and you've said it many times how I got support from your family, and they've been supportive, and you got the help that you needed, and you also asked for help when you needed it too. Like that's I need help here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what makes you think from that, like you had a legitimate chance, did someone come to you and say, "Listen, apply for this fire chief's position"? Because you're in PG County. You're not even at how do you had to do a matrix in your mind, like, I'm okay, come here. You didn't do that, or you just, okay, I'm gonna get to this spot, see what happens there. I get to that spot, see what happens there. How did you do that?
I didn't do it. I didn't do it. So literally, that gentleman I tell you about, that ended up being my mentor, and then later on in my career, I ended up working with him. He told me some amazing things, and one of the amazing things he told me is, he said, you should be reinventing yourself about every 3 years. He said, and while you're reinventing yourself, what are you doing to make that happen? So, there was it's hard to say. Maybe when I was having kids, growing my family, that might have taken breaks, but I was always in some form of training, education, improve myself. Doing this to be on whatever committee, just so I can understand how things work and learn. So I was close to retirement, and I actually had opened up a USA Jobs account. I was getting hits on it, and really nothing that said, this is what I want to do. And I actually at that time, the academy was under my portfolio. So I went to the academy to see how things were doing, go talk to the recruits. And one of the instructors said, Chief, what's next for you, man? What you gonna do next? I said, actually, I got some feelers out there, but I really haven't had anything that I'm really interested in. He said, what do you have? I said, USA Jobs. He said, open up an Indeed account. He said, open up Indeed. I said, all right, I'll look into it. That week, I set up a profile. That week, the city of Alexandria came up on my profile for a deputy chief of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And I was like, wow, this sounds really, really interesting. It was really interesting because I had an opportunity to do some work under the county executive's office with they call it Transforming Neighborhood Initiative, TNI, where you brought in every aspect of the county government that was on each team. There were 6 teams. I had the ability to run one of those teams. I was an assistant chief at that time in the fire department. Everybody else was a deputy chief administrative officer for public safety, for economic development, for health and human services. I was the only one that was given a team I had directors on my team. I had business leaders on my team. We dealt with education. We dealt with transportation.
Wow.
We dealt with economic development, housing. I got exposed to so many things. We applied for grants that was not fire service related. So I got that exposure to deal with a lot of things outside of the normal stuff that the fire service had. And I looked at the application. I'm like, I was never a trained emergency manager. I didn't go through a degree for emergency management. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, I went home, talked to my wife. I said, what do you think? She said, try it out. Well, actually, it was my fiance at the time. It wasn't even my wife. So I applied, and I went through. It was 2 of us that made it to the last state, and I didn't get the job. So went back to being the deputy chief in Prince George's on my way. A month later, I got a call from the fire chief in Alexandria and said, hey, Smedley, how you doing? I said, I'm good, chief. What can I help you with? You want a job? I said, what do we talk about? He said, the Homeland Security job. I said, I saw you put out the announcement that you hired somebody. Yeah, I'll talk about that later, but do you want the job? Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's how I had to go have another interview with the city manager, and ultimately I ended up getting the job. Fast forward 3 years later, and this is why I say it's not me. It was June in 2019. Me and my wife went to church at the time. My wife and I went to church. The pastor's sermon was a courage to climb. That was the sermon, a courage to climb. We left church. She had to do an event in Ocean City. We drove to Ocean City. That was a Sunday. Monday I took off because we were just going to hang out, have breakfast on the beach and just kind of hang out and then come back. I was going to come back to work on Tuesday. That Monday, I got a text from the fire chief and said, hey, I need you to call me. I'm like, God dog, man, I never take off, leave me alone. So he said, it won't take long. So I called him, and he said, hey, Smedley, at that time I was the assistant chief.
Right.
He says, I'm retiring. Effective. This was May. He said, I'm retiring in July. I said, okay. The assistant chief, there was only 2 assistant chiefs there. The 2 in Alexandria, assistant chiefs are number 2s. So the other assistant chief had already resigned. I'm the last man standing. I said, okay. He said, I just wanted to let you know before I let the department know. So he got off the phone. He sent the email out. I obviously saw the email that he's retiring. Later on that day, I got a call from the city manager's office and said, hey, I want you to come to the city manager's office at 3 o'clock. I said, I'm in Ocean City. I'm off today. Can I come tomorrow? I'm back tomorrow. I said, yeah. And they told me what time to come. Obviously, I had an idea what they wanted to talk to me about. So I went there on that Tuesday. They said, we're going to place you as acting. You're going to shadow the chief until he's out of here, and we're doing a national search.
Okay.
The sermon was a courage to climb. The scripture was Joshua 1, verses 6 and 7. And I can't state it verbatim, but it was talking about lead these people. It wasn't me.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So sometimes
it wasn't me.
Yeah, sometimes you have help down here. Sometimes you have help from above.
Oh yeah,
Right.
It wasn't me, man. And so that's how it happened. I acted for about 6 months. Unfortunately, there was a vote of no confidence from the on the previous chief. We had EEO complaints. We had some discipline issues. So we had to work our way through that. I was the outsider, because I didn't grow up through the organization.
Yeah.
But the good news, I had 3 years of intel about the organization. So I had to go through the national process. I had 7 interviews that I had to go through to become fire chief, and ultimately they named me the fire chief. So that's how I got through it, man. And I learned a lot through that process. We were a right to work state.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the difference between Virginia and here? What are the
it's right to work state. Northern Virginia is mainly a Democratic
it is pretty
place. The rest of Virginia is really not. The rest of Virginia views Northern Virginia differently. Like it's something else, and at least in my perspective, based on how I saw things working. It was a right to work state. It's a city, so it controls everything, but it also is a very smaller city, and so information like literally, I had to write a memo about a fire we had. I'm like, I have to write a memo about this fire because they wanted to have some information about it. The community had immediate access to go into, not directly, but they had a lot of access to the elected officials. It was the mayor. It wasn't a strong mayor. It was a city manager form of government. All of the council members were at large. We went into right to work state to be able to be a bargaining state. So Alexandria got ratified the first ever fire contract in the history of Virginia when I was the fire chief there. And
what's a fire contract?
Your CBA, your collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, all right.
So they never had that before. So we had the first CBA in the history of fire service in Virginia. And so you can imagine when it never existed before, going through that process to make it happen, it was some growing pains in that place. So we had staffing challenges and we had to overcome that. We started the road on accreditation. I didn't finish it when I was there, but they recently just became accredited this year. And so I'm proud that I was able to be a part of that. So they have a volunteer system there, but it's not anything like you have here in Montgomery County or Prince George's County. So just a little different politics, different structure in government.
How big is Alexandria?
Alexandria is small. Alexandria is 15.6 square miles, and they have 10 stations. They have just under 350 firefighters. Our daily staff is 308 here. Their daily staffing was about 70 there. The difference I see here and Prince George's County that is from Alexandria, something can happen in Battalion 2 and another battalion don't even know about it. If it happens in Alexandria, it spreads like a wildfire and it's hard to get in front of it. From a community standpoint and from internally as well. So if Smedley screwed something up, you might not know about it here. You're gonna know about it in Alexandria really fast. It's really hard to have communication flow the way you want it to flow in that kind of space. You really got to be fast in that space because the narrative will change on a dime.
Right.
So that makes sense. I mean, just like in a small town or small neighborhood, information is going to spread fast. And in a small department, I could see that.
No question. I can imagine that was challenging in its own right. So you're there for how long before how does that work? How long could you stay there? I don't know. The word is that 5 years or 6 years is a long time for a chief. I don't know. That varies on individual, but
it varies. Like Chief Goldstein, he did 8 years here as a chief. I did a total of 8 years in Alexandria, five as the chief, and I left. They didn't ask me to leave. I left. You get to a point in your career where you know enough about yourself that you can realize when you've made the difference that you're going to be able to make. And I reached that point where I felt that we improved our staffing. We started putting more analytics into what we do. We started the accreditation process. We got a contract, a first union contract established. We've improved some of our training and hiring practices. We started to work on our fleet. I was able to get a station completed. We were doing some. We got our staffing relief factor where it needed to be. Now the argument on the other side is the overtime is going away, so they didn't like that as much.
Right.
So I went through 2 city managers, 2 mayors. So at that time it was. I felt that it's time to move out the way and let somebody else come into play to have an opportunity.
Gotcha. And I guess everything just happened to line up perfectly well that Montgomery was looking for a fire chief, and I guess you were looking for the next step. And how was the process of you becoming our chief? I mean, because we saw it from the outside. We knew, okay, that this guy Chief Smedley is in the running, and we knew the other internal things that were going on here. But what was it like from your perspective getting hired here in Montgomery?
So I didn't know what I wanted to do when I said I was leaving Alexandria. Me and my wife prayed, and we fortunately enough, I had retirement from Prince George's County, so I can feed my family. And I was doing some consulting work. And so I just happened to, I make sure that I build relationships with people. So I talk to the chiefs around the region and around the country and other people in the fire service. So I stayed in contact with the chief of Prince George's County, and we talked, and I let him know, I'm leaving. I'm going to do some consult work, and then I'll figure it out from there. She said, I got a deputy chief's position. Would you mind coming back and helping me out until we fill it? I was like, this is cool to come back home. Right. So I was like, sure, I'll do that. So I left on the 12th of January in 2024 and started on the 16th of January in 2024 in Prince George's County. What's a unique fact? I was in 3 fire departments last year.
Yeah.
From January to January 12th, Alexandria. January 16th to May. I can't remember the last date in Prince George's, and I started Montgomery in July 15th of last year. So I was in 3 fire departments last year. So I had to make sure. Do I have the right shirt on?
Right. That's crazy. Man.
So I was there, and I was welcome back. I a lot. It almost was 10 years, so I didn't know everything that was going on, but I kind of eased in pretty seamlessly into things, right? I kind of knew, I had my footing. I was just learning the new politics and what has changed since I had gone, and so I was there. I was enjoying myself. I was having fun. I was reestablishing relationships. I was in my zone, man.
Mhm.
And I didn't have the issues that a fire chief have. I could say, "Hey, chief, here you go."
Right.
And one day, I just every so often I looked at LinkedIn, right? And one day I looked at LinkedIn. Actually, I wrote it down. It was March 25th. I looked at LinkedIn and I had a message from Montgomery County said, "Would you please give us a call?" Right. The unfortunate thing, I didn't see it till March 27th. so I was 2 days late responding. So I responded. It's like I called the number. They didn't pick up at that point. I got a message saying that I will receive a call in a few hours. I got a call in a few hours, and they asked me how I was doing. We spent about 15 minutes, and they said, "Hey, I don't know if you've been watching the news. We're looking for a fire chief. The county executive wants to have a conversation with you. Would you have a conversation?" Yeah, sure. I'll have a conversation.
Mhm.
So I never applied for Montgomery County in ever in my life. I've never
Wow.
applied for anything in Montgomery County.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, the first thing that I ever signed was my offer letter. That
Wow.
was the first thing I signed. So I went through. So it took several weeks to get an interview, and I did an interview with the county executive at first. I had an interview with the county executive's office 1 week. Then the following week, I came back in with the county executive's office and the county executive. The county executive told me that they will have conversations and they will get back to me when they finish. I left Rockville, the EOB. I got to Route 4, Pennsylvania Avenue and Suitland Parkway, and I got a call from the county executive's office. Said the county executive is really excited about you and he wants to submit your name for nomination. That was a Wednesday. I
Mhm.
said, "Thank you for that confidence. I appreciate the offer. Can you give me through the weekend? I need to go home and talk to my wife. We're going to pray on it." I told him that. I said, "We're going to pray on it, and then I'll get back to you." Said, "Fine." So we went home. I went home, and she was like, "Absolutely. Why not?" I said, "Well, I'm enjoying myself. I am not. I don't have an ego. I don't need to be called fire chief. Right? I'm back home where I got my first start. I'm enjoying myself. I'm helping out." She's like, "Don't take that sign and let it go past you. You never even applied for Montgomery County, and they're calling you.
Right.
What are you afraid of?" Is
Mhm.
what she said. And then when your wife tells you that, it kind of hits you in your chest. So,
Right. Right.
and I had to think about that. I'm like, I'm not. I'm not afraid. It's going to be a lot of work. It's a mammoth of an organization.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's do this. So I called him up and I said, yes. He said, "All right, we need to make sure you don't have a criminal background and all that kind of stuff." So I had to
Right.
give him information so they can go through the process that they normally go through, and then they eventually got to a point where they gave me an offer letter. I signed that, and I met with your union a couple times. I met with the association a couple times. Met with the command staff. I met with each um, council member separately, and then I had the public hearing with the council as a whole, and eventually they voted me in, and then now I'm here. So I go back to it wasn't me.
Right.
Again, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
I just make sure that when I have that opportunity, I take advantage of that opportunity and do what is needed to do, not what is liked of me to do.
Absolutely.
Good, man.
That's
Interesting. That was
yeah. That's
crazy
amazing.
story. Yes, that's
Mhm.
crazy how I mean, it just kind of came back around to you after all the stuff that you've done and all the things that you've done. That's good that you're motivated enough to still, because a lot of people, you were like, man, I've done enough. I've done enough to stay disciplined and motivated enough to see what else is there. What
Yeah.
else is there? Well, I mean, there's still more to learn, still more to do.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I learn pretty much every day. I learn from my mistakes. I learn from a lot of brilliant people here. But it I have. I think I'm going to do a presentation called First Squared. I have been the first in 2 organizations as a fire chief now in this region, again, that's not to my doing. Um, um, but I want to share some of those experiences that I have to go through, that I still have to go through when you're the first of something, whether that's the first of being an outsider, the first of being a African American, whatever that first is. You go through stuff that I want to share so people can understand how you go through it, and they can learn from whatever I did well and what I didn't do well. But I like doing this because I have the opportunity to help others, whether it's in the community, whether it's to get hired, whether it's to elevate, whether it's to get to a specialty, whether it's I can challenge them to get out of their comfort zone. I like helping people in that space, and that's really why I love doing this kind of work.
No,
That's
absolutely.
that's great. That's great. Now, what has been the most challenging part about you being Montgomery County's fire chief so far?
um, Ultimately, this has been a really easy transition for me, especially when I hadn't started trying to do something. I mean, y'all love me at first. Yeah, I think you still love me. But now that we're talking about doing something, um, uh, I have a 24-year-old, 23-year-old, and a 21-year-old. All right, and um, what Goldie told me, what Chief Goldstein told me, um, when I was going through this process, he said, Smedley, you're going to inherit an amazing organization. You got some great people that are brilliant, doing some wonderful things. Here's what I want you to understand. We're only 20 years old. He said, so you're going to look at stuff and you're going to ask yourself, why this or why not this? And I just want you to always go back to, we're only 20-year-old the way we're structured right now.
Right.
So there's still some maturity that has to happen in the organization.
Yeah.
So based on my 24-year-old, 23-year-old, and 21-year-old, I understand. So really, there's some of the things that are more challenging than others are the fact that people are really attached to certain things in certain ways. And sometimes it's hard to get them to see an alternative way of doing things. That's sometimes challenging. Um, uh, Getting us all together, not to be groupthink, but in the same space, right? I need people to be in the same space. Sometimes that's challenging. Um, get them to see that it's okay to take a chance with things, even though there's some risk at it. We are a risk agency. We have to be comfortable with risk acceptance, right? We can't
Right.
avoid risk.
Right.
and just getting people to understand that, but also making sure that I am doing things in a manner that makes people feel safe to take that risk, right? Where sometimes in places, um, people have been um, treated or dealt with a certain way, and they're a little shy of trying to take that risk on how they may be perceived with their colleagues or how things have happened to them and that they've seen happen to others and they don't want to happen to themselves. So as an example, Chief Cooper and I talk a lot. We talked when I first got here about what's my thought process on how many units can be out of service at one time.
Mhm.
And I said, we talked a lot about those kind of things. And I said that why am I making that decision? All right. We got don't we have a doc? That's the doc's responsibility.
Right.
Set expectations and let the doc run their shift.
All right.
Right. And when we have people out of service for whatever reason, community events, training, doing maintenance on vehicle, whatever, and you see something change, make the appropriate adjustments. But we got to be able to make them feel safe and comfortable with making decisions and not micromanaging them. So that work is still happening, so that we can be able to make those riskier decisions and moves so that we can evolve and innovate. We can't always continue to do everything we've always done because we won't evolve.
Mhm.
And we have to evolve because things are evolving around us. I learned recently that we have, I'm probably going to get the name wrong, but auxiliary dwelling units, right? And I like, what the heck is that? We have legislation in Montgomery County, and it's geared toward affordable housing,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
right?
I know what you're talking about. Yes, I do.
Where you can build.
In the backyard. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, wow, I'm glad I know about it now. How well do we know about it? Right.
Out
And
the box thinking for sure.
yeah, and what are the challenges that we have to overcome with that, right? Because if a 911 call comes out for 123 Main Street for a heart attack, and we go to 123 Main Street and it's 123 A Main Street in the back, and we know nothing about it, those are things we have. So we have to be that's out of the box thinking. That's innovative. And some people I know are not going to like it. It might be that NIMBY, not in my backyard kind
That's
of
a bunch.
perspective,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that we have to think about as well while we're evolving, because it's happening around us. And if we think everything that we've always have done is always going to continue to work, shame on us.
Well, Chief, this business that you're in and I'm still in, and um, um, we're inherently a reactionary. Uh, what we do is reactionary. We try to see, and that's very difficult. How do you transition the thought process? We can be proactive. We walkthroughs, air familiarization. That's all proactive. You know what I'm saying? Training. That's all proactive. But as far as the thought process at that next level, how do you convince people that that being proactive helps us manage our reaction time, and it speeds it up, and the process in the end makes us better at what we do? Because like you said, to convince people that change is needed, if it ain't broke, don't fix it is probably the answers you'll get for a lot of times. And that's inherently on everybody, right? I mean, we all do that in some respect. How do you keep people motivated and thinking, okay, I need to do this and do it across the county? I mean, you can say we're going to do this, but you got, this for sure. You got to get buy-in. So they got to believe it. So they're doing it when you're not around or no one's around. They're just doing it.
Yeah. Setting expectations continuously is part of that. Closing the say-do gap. If I say something, I got to do it.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
I just can't say it and then keep saying it and keep saying it's not happening. I lose credibility in that leadership capabilities. As an example, um, a couple of months ago, I was finishing up a division chiefs meeting, and I had my mentor here from out of town, and he was yes, I have a mentor. That's a way you show it, right?
Yeah.
I have a mentor.
Mhm.
But support services was going to get on a call with general services about station 24 and the mold, right? And so I was asked, am I going to be on the conference call? No, I'm not. You got it. Y'all got it. We are capable. They just wanted to, not that they didn't have it, because they had it. It was just they wanted to see if I wanted to be a part. No, I don't have to be in everything, right? So I want you all to do it. And then I said, so what is our ultimate goal we have to think about? Well, if we got mold, we got to do something about it. Okay. All right. Well, get the information, collaborate, brief me on a recommendation, and then we'll finalize a decision. And the statement to me was, well, historically, the administration kind of was against coming out of a fire station. And my question was, who's the administration? Because I was being sincere. Are we talking about the county executive's office? Are we talking about the fire chief's administration? What are we talking about? And it was the fire administration. And this is what I said, and I say it all the time. We go into harm's way when we have to go into harm's way. We're not going to be in harm's way when we're not supposed to be in harm's way. So when you finish that call and you all come with this recommendation and it says it's not safe for us to be in there, pull them out. If you're confident in those things, pull them out. Now it's my job to talk with the community, to talk to the media, to talk with the elected officials. And I can easily say, it's not safe for our people to be in there, and I'm not going to keep our people in places that are not safe. Right. That's it. There's nothing else to say. That's a way of demonstrating the change, because what was told to me is that wasn't culturally accepted here, right? So that's an example of that. The example of when there's, looking at where we see that there's challenges, whether that's in a specialty space or otherwise. All right, let's look at it. Let's manage it. Let's hold people accountable. Let's adjust it where it needs to be adjusted, and let's execute it. The fact that I brought in, I can't tell you what happened or not happened before me, but when I got here, it wasn't happening. The fact that I culturally, which wasn't happening when I got here, brought in the union president and the executive director to the MCFRS into the managers meeting, so we can talk together.
All right.
So we can have uncomfortable conversations together. So we can build relationships and trust together. So that when we're having these conversations about things, we're all in the same space. It's not you're getting information after the fact and you're getting information over here. We're all getting the information at the same time. And that helps us understand different perspectives, and we can find solutions that way. And it doesn't have to always be what I think it should be or what you think it should be, as long as we establish what we're trying to accomplish and we can adequately execute those things and sustain them.
All right.
Yeah, that's great.
That is great.
I'm sorry, fellas. I need to pause this for 1 second.
What you guys?
Hold on. Yeah, Chief, and that's really amazing, and it's almost another full circle moment. It's like you said, that you couldn't do your job as a battalion chief if you're on the roof cutting a hole.
Yeah.
So, like, by you letting the chiefs below you handle the things that's well within their purview of responsibility, then they can take care of that, and you're free to look at things from the 30,000 foot view and say, all right, am I taking care of these people? Do they have what they need? Am I communicating to other people in the community to understand what's going on? So I think that's great.
It's about trust, really, isn't it? I mean,
yes. That was the example, Russ, on United Therapeutics. All the things that I mean, there's so many opportunities with that biotech multi-billion-dollar company that's right in our backyard.
Mhm.
That, for me, that was the first time I was exposed to that kind of thing, and they're right in our backyard. So when you talk about they move donated lungs
Right.
across the country. Across the country. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the fact that they're saying, hey, we want to help, and there's an opportunity we can do some training with each other to help our paramedics learn about different things that they're learning, and that they're not only learning, but they're changing the trajectory of how medicine is occurring in the future. I can't do that if I'm cutting a hole on the roof.
Right.
So that's just an example of what the other things that we can expose ourselves to when we're doing that. And then that should be something that's infectious. That kind of style should be infectious throughout the organization, every part of the way, so that I really should be doing my boss's job. I try to do my boss's job so that I can help him alleviate time and energy to help support me. So
Right.
my goal is to do my job and do some of his job so that we can be on the same page. He can have some capacity to do some of the stuff that's a little bit harder to do to help me. And I hope that starts to happen even more throughout our organization.
Yeah, you mentioned something that was I thought was pretty important. It's about trust. It's about giving people room to grow. And this department, in many ways, is still in the infancy of itself. You mentioned that earlier. It's a brand new. We don't have. I think I mentioned this off camera to you before the podcast about how new we were, and the part of this podcast, me and Russ, was we wanted to talk to retirees, but it's starting to mold into other things. And part of it is creating a tradition from Montgomery County,
Mhm.
having the folks underneath or less time than me know that they're standing on the shoulders of other people. We didn't get here by accident. And it's funny because you're uniquely qualified to be the fire chief here at this time because you come from all these spots, and you come from these spots that are local.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? The uniqueness of the DMV area is very unique. We're like
Yep.
no other in the world.
Yep.
The way things work, how we run stuff, it's a higher level of things, dealing with the federal government, dealing with local government, a lot of entities there that most places just don't have.
Yeah.
And building a tradition in a fire department that's basically, you say it's large, it is large, comparatively speaking, but we're still babies in this whole deal.
Yeah. And we have to have a space, create spaces where we get people in rooms. So one of those moments for me, when I was assigned to the county exec's office, one day, the county, the CAO, county chief administrative officer, had to go down to the council of governments, and the meeting was for all the CAOs in the region. At that time, I was a captain, right? So I went with her. I had a laptop. I drove down there with her. I sat in the room. They were at the big square table with all the CAOs in the region. I sat in the overflow chairs with my laptop, and I was like a sponge. I'm in the room as a fire captain with CAOs from DC, Fairfax, Montgomery,
Yes,
Prince George. I mean, in the whole region. I'm like, I had to ask questions. I didn't even know what they were talking about sometimes. But the stuff I did know they were talking about, I was like, that's how that works. And so we gotta create spaces to give people opportunity to be in these rooms. Let's stop hoarding information and intel and then wonder why we are concerned why somebody doesn't know something. We have to create those spaces. Just because some of us didn't have those opportunities, don't perpetuate that. change that cycle and provide those opportunities and those spaces for others to learn as well.
Yeah, and that even goes back to culture in the firehouse, because I think a lot of times, like you were probably taught and we probably learned that, rookies should just shut up and do what they're supposed to do and don't say anything and all of that. But this man or woman may have experience from life that we have no knowledge of, that could help us do business better.
Right.
Or if they see something on a call that everybody else misses, that they should be empowered to speak up,
To say something.
yeah. Or even on the mental health aspect, if they're having an issue, they should feel comfortable amongst their peers in the firehouse to say, hey, look, I'm not okay. But that environment gets created by the officers, by the masters, by the rest of the firefighters. And so giving people the space, the comfortability to be able to speak up and engage, that's critical.
And as a small example, but it's huge. And Battalion Chief Blake and now Battalion Chief Gibson has demonstrated that. Firefighter Ferguson in recruitment.
Yeah.
He was a military recruiter. He is, and the team over there is just, I look and like, wow, this is, I mean, they're everywhere. They're doing so many creative things that I'm looking around. I know based on being a peer assessor and accreditation, I know from being in other organizations, the stuff that they're doing, some good, some they need to, take a chapter out of our book. But he's a firefighter in that space, but has a certain skill set that is helping propel us in recruitment. And that's just a small example, but it's so huge of why we are having the results that we're having, with not struggling with filling classes and not struggling with a diverse candidate pool. So we got to do more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
So what was your last, getting back to you more specifically, what was it the last day when you left PG? The second time, not as much, but the first time, because the first time was when you were leaving and you were going to get a job completely.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's the stages of grief, right? It's like it's a death of my family, right? I'm no longer going to be inside this organization. So I felt a little bit of that. It was a little anxiety, a little stress, sadness, the unknown. What am I getting into? I know the who's who. I know the where's where. I know the policies. I know all these things in Prince George's County. I got to learn all this stuff when I get to Alexandria. But remember, I said I do this quite often, right? Because I do this not only inside the organization, but also outside the organization. I did have some colleagues in Alexandria already. So when I before I got there and when I got there, I was able to easily pick up the phone, call them, and say, "Hey, where's the fuel pumps?" As simple as that. Or, all right, we're creating this new position. Tell me how it's worked for you here when you created a new classification, going through the process with budget and HR to onboard a new position and getting that backdrop. So those kind of things were very beneficial. And then for me, I will ask. I'll engage you. It could be our first time. Hey, Tony, what's up, man? Let me get your number.
Okay.
I'll get your number. And what do you do? How you get there? All right. So I'm gonna call you, man. I'm serious. And I do. when I need to, I call people and I was like, okay, I'm dealing with this issue. I don't really know. I've never dealt with that before. I don't know the policies and procedures that well yet here. What am I missing? What are the things I need to be thinking about? And I have no problem with that, man. We're all here to help each other. We all have value. And so that's really easy for me. That's really easy for me. And I take advantage of that opportunity.
Nice. Now you've obviously been in the chief space for a while, but do you miss riding fire trucks?
I do, but not as I used to. So I can tell you now, I'm not Goldstein, right? I love going to calls, but probably not as much as Chief Goldstein. I want to stop them, quite frankly, because I want us to be efficient, competent when we go to them. But every incident is someone's tragedy or someone's not good day.
Right.
So for me, I want to stop it. Do I still listen to the radio? Do I still love the sirens? Do I love the smell of smoke? Absolutely.
Right.
All of the above.
Right.
But that I've been a chief officer since 05.
So
Wow.
I've been
20
a chief
years.
officer. Yeah. So it's been a long time since I've ridden on a fire truck. So I'm very careful with 3 points because I don't want to come off the step and then y'all look at me like the fire chief and got up on an engine and then twisted his ankle. Get him out of here. Get him out of here.
We're about the same age. I ain't gonna say nothing to you. Don't worry.
We don't want to see that. How the fire chief get on 85?
Yeah. What's that look like?
Yeah.
But since I've been here, I've been in the region, but you pay more attention to where you at, right? And now I come here, I'm like, man, I didn't realize that Montgomery ran this much.
Yeah.
We get our share of a lot of different
Yes.
diverse call types. And I was really surprised when I got here. I'm thinking, there ain't no shootings in Montgomery County. They don't have no significant fires. I don't hear about no significant fire. You might get a building collapse or a plane in the wires.
Yeah.
that'll really make the news. But when I got here, I was like, okay, yeah, they're pretty busy, man. And we're staffed well. We train well. We got, so far that I've seen, the best training academy in the state.
Wow.
So it's just, we should be proud of what we have. And
Absolutely.
until you get out of your comfort zone and go other places, you don't realize the gem you have. I like going to calls. But I truly want to try to stop them. And I know our fire dogs don't like hearing that quite often, but I want to stop them, man. I don't want anybody to get hurt.
Okay.
And to have a tragedy, not only to pitchers, losing your pitchers that you can never get back, and just those kind of things. When I talked to the captain from Arlington, he was just like, man, there's stuff in there that we just will never get back. Everybody got out, perfect, but it's just stuff that the history of your family and pictures of you growing up with your kids that you never get back, man. And that's
forever.
Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, Chief, as we'll get ready to start wrapping things up here. But this is a question that we ask everybody, and you will be no different. So, you're obviously very active as our fire chief. You're engaged, you're communicative, and we appreciate that. But when you wake up in the morning every day and you look at yourself in the mirror, who is the man looking back at you, and what do you say to him?
Well, the first thing I do is pray. Before my feet hit the floor, I pray. Then I go get my wife coffee. If I don't get her coffee, I'm in trouble.
Smart man.
But it's like sometimes I want to pinch myself because I had no idea,
Right.
that I would have these many opportunities over and over again. And I I thank God for giving me these opportunities. I thank Him for protecting me. I ask Him to guide me because I'm human and sometimes my patience run thin. I ask Him to keep me very humble, and don't, because I have a position, don't treat people bad. Make sure that I advocate for people that are being treated bad and address those things. Make sure that I realize that don't take yourself too serious all the time. I want to. I also look at it from a standpoint like today. I graduate from with my cohort from Leadership Montgomery. It's going to end probably 3:30, 4 o'clock. I'm gone for the day after that because I want to make sure I'm spending time outside of work and spending time with my family. I'm still blessed to have both my mom and dad living. They're both 84. So, Friday nights, Friday evenings are me and my wife's date night.
Mhm.
I look in there to make sure I don't forget those kind of things. And just really sometimes just to be able to spend time being able to think. Don't do anything. Just spend time to think and reflect on. All right, Corey, what are you doing? What's next? What do you need to improve on? What is it that you need to figure out just to get some of you time? What's your next trip you're going on? Who did you not get back to? That you need to follow up with. So those are the kind of things, but really keeping things balanced in the right way and prioritize the right way. And fire is not the first. It's making sure I'm doing right and doing what I hear God tell me to do, and then making sure I'm doing the right by my family, and then the fire service comes after that. So just making sure that those things are always in perspective when I'm looking at myself in the mirror.
That's great, man. That's great. We usually say, I usually tell everyone, this is thank you for your service. You appreciate it, bro. I mean, you've given a lot of yourself, your family, and you continue to. So it's appreciated. So thanks for everything you do, man. And is there a message you would want to send out to the fire department you currently run and some of the ones you used to run? Just a final message before we get off.
Yeah, just one thing that I reflect on, get out your comfort zone. Get out your comfort zone. It's okay. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to be vulnerable in front of your colleagues. Everybody has flaws. Everybody has attributes. But get out your comfort zone. It's going to be okay. And don't try to. You want to help people, but don't try to please everybody. Go out there and do what you know is right to do while you have that opportunity, because that opportunity is not always going to be there. I'm going to continue to do my best in that space, and I encourage you to do the same.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Yes, Fire Chief Corey Smedley, thank you so very much for sitting down with us. We really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the When the Smoke Clears podcast. Be sure to check out our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Just search for the When the Smoke Clears podcast. Feel free to email us at whenthesmokeclears8@gmail.com. That's whenthesmokeclears and the number 8@gmail.com. You can also support the show by going to the website buymeacoffee.com/whenthesmokeclears and donating however much you'd like.